Good morning, everybody. Each state has its own backstory, and as we travel through the various states, we can see evidence of that. And if you've ever been to Alaska, you might have noticed the odd Russian church. Well, that's because Russia used to own Alaska, and it was on this date, March 30, in 1867, that we bought Alaska from the Russians. There's a lot of evidence that Alaska and Russia were connected thousands of years ago by what is known as the Bering land bridge. So the connection between that part of the world goes way back. So this map shows the Kamchatka Peninsula. In the 1700s, the Tsars sent explorers out there to see what was out there, and one of the leaders of the expeditions was this guy, Vitus Bering, who was from Denmark. So Bering and his crews went out to the area between Russia and Alaska, and this map shows the routes of their two expeditions. Bering actually died on the second expedition, but his name lives on in the Bering Sea and the Bering Strait, and he and his crew were probably the first Europeans to see Alaska, and they were after the sea otter. There was quite a brisk trade in sea otter pelts. They were very valuable because they were very warm. So getting an otter pelt robe or blanket was considered quite a special thing because of how luxurious they were. So the Russians made their way up the Aleutian Islands and they came across the Aleut people. And here's a photograph of some Aleuts. The word Alaska actually comes from an Aleutian word meaning mainland. So the Russians encountered many native peoples during their time in Alaska. Their first settlement was in the Aleutians at Unalaska in 1774. And their second settlement was on Kodiak Island in 1784. So you can see that they're slowly moving closer to the mainland of Alaska. Around 1800, they set up Sitka. This became the head of what was known as Russian America. And up and down the coast were all kinds of trading posts. The Russians tended to cling to the coast. They didn't really get inland that much. And this map, which shows you where Juneau is, the modern capital, also shows how close it is to Sitka, the Russian capital. So the two were close to each other. Russian America also extended down into California. And Fort Ross, which is north of San Francisco, was an active Russian fort for about 30 years. So if you visit it today, you can see a replica of the buildings and the fort that were there. But by the time we get to our story, the Russians are really feeling the heat from the Hudsons Bay Company. Hudsons Bay Company was founded in the 1600s, very active in the fur trade. By the time we get to the mid-1800s, they're established in the western part of North America. This map shows Wrangell, Alaska today. That had been a Russian trading post which was bought by the Hudsons Bay Company. Now, in addition to trading, the Russians were very active in mission work, and Russian Orthodox priests set up many congregations in Alaska and also helped the Aleutians develop their alphabet. So there were some Russian characters in that alphabet. Well, here's our event. On this date in 1867, we agreed to buy Alaska from the Russians. It was harder and harder for the Russians to keep it supplied. They were getting lots of competition, and it was just time to unload it. So in this cartoon, the Tsar is basically saying to William Seward, I've got lots of ice and furry animals, and you can have them if you want them. And Seward is saying, sure. So this is why it was called Sewards Folly at first, because people thought it was just an icy wasteland. So here's the check that was written eventually for $7.2 million. That comes to about 2 cents an acre. And part of the legacy of that Russian time period are the Russian churches. This is one in Unalaska, but there are about 80 active Orthodox congregations in Alaska. This one is in Sitka, which again was the capital of Russian America. And if you ever go to Anchorage and drive up to Denali Park, about half an hour north of Anchorage, you find this little guy, St. Nicholas. So there are many active congregations in Alaska. So we think of Alaska as the land of the midnight sun. But it was also part of the Russian Empire, and the Russian legacy lives on today.